let's get started. Now, how's everybody's physical health? Are they feeling okay? I mean, I've got the flu today and I'm hoping my voice doesn't drop out, but basically, we get the odd disease, like the flu, we get a couple of injuries, but basically we're pretty physically healthy. Is everybody pretty physically healthy in the room? I hope so. Put your hand up if you think you're okay. Maybe you're not 100%, but you're okay. Okay, so when I would ask you, how's your physical fitness, what would you say? So what would the difference between physical health and physical fitness be? So would that say that maybe you're still physically healthy, but you actually can do extra things, you function better, you can climb that mountain, run that marathon, run around the park. Would that be fair? So how many are physically fit in the audience? Excellent. That's more hands than I normally see, so that's good to see. So what I now want to ask you is, how's your mental health? So, okay, maybe you could have had a mental illness in your life, maybe you don't have it now. Are you being treated? Do you have a brain injury? Or are you pretty much mentally healthy? And I find the majority of people are pretty much mentally healthy. So are we pretty mentally healthy in the main? Absolutely. Good. Okay, so how's your mental fitness? Is it okay? Do you know what it is? I didn't know what it was. Everybody thinks they know what it is. But I spent 7 years of study, 7 years on a PhD, to try and find out what mental fitness was, because everybody's got a different explanation. So I thought, well, what is it? Is it just doing exercises for your brain? I know with physical fitness, we talk about flexibility, endurance, strength. Are they things you associate to physical fitness? So you go to the gym and you build your muscles and you get flexible, and then you go and you lift your weights, and then you run for a long time and you've got endurance. Would you think that that would be associated to your mental fitness as well? And these were the questions I had to ask in my PhD, because I didn't really know. Because when I looked at what mental fitness was, everybody had different ideas. So let me take you on the journey, and hopefully I'll give you a bit of information. I looked in the positive psychology literature first. Now, I'm sure you all pretty much know what positive psychology is. It's been around for a while. But I needed positive psychology to underpin mental fitness, because I thought the outcome of mental fitness must be well-being. We must be able to feel good. If we're going to go through the rigour of learning mental fitness, surely there has to be a positive outcome. So I looked to the science of positive psychology, and I looked about shifting this paradigm for, let's wait till we get sick mentally and let's treat you. We don't want to do that anymore. We want to give you all the wonderful tools. I'm sure Tim would say too. We want to give you tools for mental health and mental fitness before you get depressed, before you get anxious. In medicine, we do it now. They'll tell you, start exercising so you don't have a heart attack. 20 years ago, they wait till you have the heart attack, and then they'll tell you what to do. Well, mental health and psychologists, we're a bit like that too, because we wait until you get depressed or anxious, and then we start telling you how to fix it. So I want to move to a proactive approach to mental health. So that was my first thing. The other thing is language. For psychologists, I don't know how you feel, but language is an issue. In many cases, if I talk about psychology, people go, oh, you're going to analyse me, aren't you? Or, oh, does that mean I've got something wrong with me? So for us, it's not the same as physical health. We have a lot of stigma around talking about psychological health and well-being. So I had trouble with that as well. And coming out of being an executive for many years and then moving into being a registered psychologist, I had a lot of trouble with the language. So I wanted to get to a language of optimal functioning, thriving, you at your best. You've been talking about potential. So that was the journey beginning. So I thought I'll go to positive psychology. I'm a scientist, but I'm a very practical person. So I use the science to apply to the practice. So we look at the Cambridge curve here. This is out of Cambridge University, Felicia Hubert in particular. And we look, the science of optimal functioning says that you can be down the end of mental disorder and you can be mentally ill with a disease of mental illness. But Felicia's work talks a lot about languishes, and she talks about people, there's a percentage of the population that are languishing. They're not mentally ill, but they're just, a bit negative. They drive you up the wall sometimes when you're with them because they're always telling you all the bad stuff, and those mirror neurons start to work and we start to feel bad along with them. And they're called languishes in the literature. But as you can see, mostly in the population, moderate mental health is what we talked about earlier. Are we mentally healthy? And that's quite a large percentage of the population. But up the other end are the flourishers, the optimal functioners, the well-being people. And you see it's not a large percentage of the population. And mental illness is going the other way. Globally, mental illness is on the rise. There's World Health Organization is saying depression will be the #1 illness globally very soon. So it's not a joke. We really need to do something about our mental health and our mental fitness. Now, have a think where you might be on that curve, or where people you know. 1 in 5 is diagnosed with a mental illness, but we think 1 in 3 is affected by it, and they're only the ones we know about. Where are you on that curve? And wouldn't you like to learn more about those flourishers, those people who are really doing well? Now, we don't want you to be happy-clappy all the time, because that's called mania. But what we want you to be is to have tools and techniques that help you to function at an optimal level. In the main, you'll go up and down that curve in your life because we have things, challenges, etc. But we want to move you up that curve. I want the arrow for the population to be going up the other way. So does that give you an idea? See along the bottom, it talks about psychological resources. That's what we're talking about. How can we give you some psychological resources to assist you to function at a higher level? Now, positive psychology, being a strengths-based psychology, suggests that you can go from distress on that curve up to well-being with time, with practice, with habits, mental habits, just like physical fitness. So I embarked on looking at the research is, well, what determines well-being? What determines mental fitness? How do we get up that curve? And Sonia Lyubomirsky's work suggests, and I think this is a range, not a point, that some of your well-being is genetic. A small percentage is external circumstances. So basically, if you live in the back streets of India and you have your basic needs, you don't vary in well-being that much compared to the people sitting in this room today. So it's not so much your external circumstances, but look at that big red piece there. Your well-being is about your actions and your thoughts. Your actions, what you do, and how you think. That's a big determinant of well-being or flourishing. So what you do every day, what you do today, what you do tomorrow, that can determine your level of well-being. So mental fitness wants to move you up that curve. Now, what do you do in physical fitness? You have to practice. You have to develop habits. If you go to the gym tomorrow and you lift a weight, what happens? Nothing. What happens if you do it over time? Your muscle starts to develop, doesn't it? So that's what we want you to start to think about mental health the same way. You can't do something one day and expect it to change. Neural pathways in your brain take time and effort. So mental fitness, to move you up that curve, is a process of activities to develop habits, practices, rituals in your life. Exactly what Anna's been talking about too. So I had to develop a definition of mental fitness. So let's start talking about what it actually is. Now this, I'm just going to run you through this very quickly because it's a bit academic, but you need to know that mental fitness was examined by a world panel of experts in my PhD, people who work in flourishing and optimal functioning. We decided it's your flexible capacity to use resources and skills to psychologically adapt to both your internal, your mind and your thoughts, and your external challenges and advantages. And that is an enabler of optimal functioning. And that definition was put together over a long period of time and evaluated. The principles behind mental fitness are these. Fitness is a positive term. It doesn't have the connotations of mental illness. So I want you to start to think about it not in terms of mental health, which has stigma associated to it. I want you to think about it in terms of mental fitness, just like, competitive advantage. If I do this, then I get that. And you can talk about it at dinner parties, like you do going to the gym. Mental fitness, the second principle, it can be understood by you, by schools, by children. I teach this a lot to children. Organisations can have fitness programs that include mental fitness, and to start to incorporate it in a similar way to physical fitness. The third principle, that it's measurable. It is measurable because I've developed a measure for it, and I've used all the science from positive psychology to develop a measure, a holistic measure of mental fitness. So that's been very powerful. It's still in the early stages of validation, but it's looking very, very good in the research. And the fourth principle, it can be improved. Your growth and well-being can be improved, but again, it's back to those actions and thoughts. What do you do every day to improve it? This is what my research is telling me. I found, for the scientists in the room, a structural equation model revealed 4 factors, and I called them endurance, team, strength, and flexibility. And you need your team. You need social support. You need relatedness in your life. People who don't have good social support have lower levels of well-being. So if I was developing your mental fitness, I would be looking at who's on your team, in your life team, your work team. I'd be looking, if you're going to endure, you need to know your strengths, use them regularly, and you need to know what the meaning is in your life. Not the meaning of life, that's a philosophical question. The meaning in your life when you get up every day. Can you articulate meaning? And this is very important in the psychological literature. Flexibility, flexible capacity. Remember in the definition, we talk about mindfulness. I know you know that I'm preaching to the converted, but mindfulness is a wonderful tool to learn, and meditation is a wonderful tool because you need to have psychological flexibility. You need to be able to observe your own thoughts in order to control them and make them work for you. You need acceptance. Acceptance came out very strongly in my research, and my clients over the last 15 years, I tell you, acceptance is a big issue. Acceptance of self, acceptance of others, acceptance of things you can't change. So that's a big one. Also, how much negative emotion you have in your life. So you've got to switch the ratio from negative to positive, because negative emotions are Velcroed to us. We love them. We've survived as a species through negative emotion. Watch out for the threats. You have PhDs in negativity. We want you to have more positivity in your life. And unfortunately, that's something you've got to work towards because it's a slow process, because we're so good at the negative. So tonight, if something bad happens to you today, you'll be thinking about the negatives. If something good happens to you today, you're probably going to Teflon it over. You'll Velcro that negative, think about it tonight, and it'll worry you. But all the 20 or 30 good things that happened today, maybe you won't be thinking about them at all. So that's come out very strongly in the research. Strength, we talk about self-efficacy. This makes you strong. Self-efficacy is what psychologists call self-belief, self-confidence. And it also came out twice in the strength factor, where I looked at competency and autonomy. Do I feel competent? Do I have choices? Do I have some freedom to choose, or do I feel hemmed in and like I have no choices? These are very big, again, in the psychological literature in self-determination theory, which is a bit of a Bible of mine because it underpins most of what we do. Positive emotional ratio I've talked about. So that's what came out in the research, and if I was building your mental fitness, these are the things that we would be measuring and developing. So I want you to have a look at it. They're all those components, by the way, are underpinned by a lot of research, much more research than mine. Have a look at the list and see if you could pick 1 or 2 today know, but talking to them about fitness, they get involved. How can this help me in sport? How can it help me get the girls? How can it make me feel better? So it's really a great conversation. So I would say to you, yes, we need treatment. We need to help people who have very low levels of mental health, but I want you to really start to think about proactive, preventative approaches to make your life more meaningful, to make it more fulfilling, and to have higher levels of well-being. Because if you're up that end of the curve and bad things start to happen, even if you go back a little way, it's not going to be as bad as if you're down in the languishing department. But it's about what you do and how you think. Thank you.